Dave Mason, welcome to Australian Musician.
Well, thank you. Nice to be there.
Yeah.
Here or there. It is.
So, how are you coping with this coronavirus year?
Frankly, after 50 years or more on the road, I could use the time off.
Yeah.
Honest with you, it's actually not too bad. And of course, I got to make a nice little video whilst we've been locked away. Which, frankly, if it hadn't been for this, it would never have gotten made.
Yeah. Yeah, we're talking about Feeling All Right, the song that you wrote and released with Traffic, and Joe Cocker had a great hit with it. When I think of that song, I think of that piano intro, the piano groove. I'm assuming it was written on guitar, though.
Well, I mean, it's a great hook. It's, as much as the song. I think it was Chris Stainton. I'm not sure. I think so. The thing is, the song, I wrote a song that's about not feeling too good myself. That's what I wrote a song about. And Joe Cocker turned it into Feeling All Right.
Okay. You managed to get some pretty high-profile friends on board for the video. The Doobie Brothers, including Mike McDonald, Mick Fleetwood, Sammy Hagar. Must be a nice feeling to be able to call those guys and they come on board immediately.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it was Mick I've known for a long time. And of course, I was in Fleetwood Mac from 94 to 96. And the Doobie Brothers, I mean, we've done shows together since the early 70s. Sammy is kind of new for me. Michael, I've gotten to know over the last 4 or 5 years. Big fan of everybody's. And so, yes, it was, I just said, well, maybe, everybody knows this song, and it's hard to mess it up. So I figured I'd just call everybody and see if they'd be interested in doing it. The trick was doing it whilst we were all spread out all over the place. But what the great thing is the way spread out as we all were, it's how tight that track is pretty amazing. Even everybody was a little surprised.
How long did it take to put the whole thing together?
Probably about a month, all in all, with sending tracks to Hawaii and Northern California, and I'm in Reno, Nevada, and then all the visual stuff was put together by a fellow named Rob Arthur in Nashville, who actually was Peter Frampton's keyboard player.
Okay.
He's gotten really proficient with video stuff. So, and that took a week or two, just back and forth with the edits. But yeah, I think I thought it'd be fun to put, rather than, because people kept asking me, well, why don't you go, online and do something and put something on. I'm like, well, yeah, okay. I mean, okay, an acoustic guitar, sing a song, and but I thought it would be kind of fun to have done this with some, like with a group, with some artists that obviously have a lot of cachet on their own, and put a little group of us together. And basically, initially, just the idea was, my initial idea for the whole thing was basically just something that would be fun and put a smile on people's faces, and that's about it. I was really looking for anything more than that.
Yeah, it's certainly been well received.
Yeah,
Feeling All Right is just a sign of things to come, though. You've also recorded your or re-recorded your debut album, Alone Together. Why did you decide to do that?
Well, actually, that just became that became more of just a personal project with really no intention of doing anything with it. And part of it was that I was like 22 when I did it. And I was really enamored with my vocals, frankly. Songs were good. And also the thing about recutting it was most of the impetus was to do with my vocals. I wanted to hear me doing it now. And there were certain arrangements, songs that I thought could have been better, like Sad and Deep as You, Can't Stop Loving, Can't Stop Worrying. So, and the other thing was that if the fact of the matter is, a lot of those songs on that album I've obviously been playing live for since the album came out, more or less, 50 years. So over the years, they've taken on life live, and so going in with my band and actually spending an afternoon and just cutting all the tracks just live was a different energy to it. And looking back, like I had some of the best session guys in LA at the time doing Alone Together. Had we been able to go out and do some shows for about 3 or 4 weeks, those tracks I think would have had it even. Well, I know they would. They would have been more. They would have had just a little extra oomph, a little extra something there.
Yeah, and I guess 50 years of technology would have made a difference this time around too.
Well, I don't think that makes it. To me, that doesn't mean a thing.
Okay.
The technology is not doesn't mean a damn thing for me. I mean, I'm from the days of 4-track, and I still approach things the same way. And first of all, you better have a song, and then when you get a song, then you better have an idea of kind of what you want to do and put the musicians together and go in and record it. So as much as the technology has helped a lot in the sense that I can do things at home by myself, and create. I mean, ideally really good demos or actually really good tracks, but in terms of the recording thing, it really, for me, it's just not. It's still recording. It's about the song and it's about the performance in the end.
Sure.
So it could still be just 2 microphones and a tape recorder, and if you can get it, you got it. So yeah.
Yeah. So are there any tracks that you're particularly happy with the way they turned out?
Well, I like the way they all turned out, especially Sad and Deep as You is a little more, and actually melody is a little changed. And it's live. It's actually a live performance and I added in a friend of mine from Nashville with a sort of little flamenco style guitar thing on there. It's very cool. Can't Stop Worrying, Can't Stop Loving. It's a slightly different arrangement. I personally think it's better. Others are pretty close to what I did. They just have a little more, the fact that it's the band and it's live, and they've been playing them, they just have a little more, there's a little more oomph. There's a little more life in the tracks.
Did you record as a band altogether?
Yeah. Just one afternoon while I was on the road in New Jersey in a studio. They just cut all the basic tracks and pretty much all the solo stuff. We just did it live. And then I redid the vocals when I got home. But essentially the music and the tracks were just laid down live. Yeah.
I wanted to talk about some key moments throughout your career. um, uh, particularly for younger fans who may not know your place in rock and roll history. Um, you can say as much or as little about it as possible, but I'll just go through a few things.
Sure.
A Hole in My Shoe was a big hit for you with Traffic,
Yeah.
which is known for the sitar parts. When did you get into Eastern instruments?
Well, that's, that's that. I mean, we're talking the early '60s or middle '60s when that was what was going on. It was East meets West. A lot of and psychedelics and all the rest of it was all happening at that time. And I was young, and I was very eclectic in terms of the sort of things that I would listen to. They're pretty broad, classical jazz. Got into Indian music a lot because, like I said, that's when it was, that whole element was sort of East meets West coming together. But all kinds of Bulgarian music and Hungarian music, just all kinds of stuff. And so I got into sitar, and George Harrison gave me the sitar that he had first bought. He said, "Here, take this and practice on that." So, and then I just incorporated it into a couple of Traffic songs. And the Hole in My Shoe was just basically a little fantasy song. Was the first thing I'd ever written, and it became their first biggest hit single in England. And also used it on a song called Paper Sun. And I also used it I used it on some tracks with Hendrix when I was working on Electric Ladyland. There were 2 or 3 tracks I used it on playing bass and sitar, which I have no idea what happened. But after that, I really I haven't played it. I mean, I couldn't even sit in that position anymore. So to play it, so it was a moment in time.
Yeah, and that spoken word midsection by Chris Blackwell's stepdaughter.
Well,
Whose idea was that?
Well, I think it was my idea. I don't know if the rest of the group the rest of the band weren't very enamored about that particular song, though it was their biggest hit. And again, like I said, it's the first thing that I personally had ever written, which is weird. So I was just exploring things. But yeah, it was I think it was probably my idea, just to very much into the studio stuff at the time.
Yeah. You mentioned Hendrix. All Along the Watchtower, that session, there's a lot of misinformation about that session. For his
Well, what's the misinformation that I can correct?
well, exactly what instruments you played and how you got involved.
Oh, well, Hendrix and I did. I just went and met. He was sitting in, I think it was Blazes. There were a little handful of sort of semi-private clubs in London, and of course, England, is essentially a small country. It'll fit in one corner of Texas, for God's sake. So everybody eventually finished up in London. So invariably, you could go out any night of the week to one of these places, and whoever was the happening band, Stones, whoever it was, Kinks, Beatles, somebody would be in there. We'd all be hanging out. And he was sitting by himself, and I just sat down, struck up a conversation with him. And he was a big fan of Traffic's, and I was obviously a big fan of his. And and from there, I just sort of finished up I spent some time with him, at his apartment, listen to records together. We'd go to clubs together. I was in and out of traffic at one point after the first album, and there was a rift going on with him and Noel Redding. So we were seriously talking about me taking Noel Redding's place. And one afternoon we went to a friend of his who had an advanced copy of John Wesley Harding, and that's where he heard something in Watchtower, because that was on that album. And we were in the studio next. I forget exactly how long it was. Probably just a few days. Myself, Jimmy, Mitch Mitchell. Actually, Brian Jones was there. Brian was a little non-compass mentis at the time. And the track was just laid down with me playing a 12-string and Jimmy on a 6-string acoustic, across from each other on a microphone, and Mitch Mitchell on drums. And that's how the track was laid down. And it was all done at Olympic. So anybody, I've heard that, people talk about it was done at Electric Ladyland. Everything was recorded at Olympic. May have been remixed at Electric Ladyland at some point, but it was all recorded right there in Olympic.
Yeah. Another classic track that you're on is Street Fighting Man. There's a lot in the song. Was it a long session?
I don't remember. I mean, Jimmy Miller was brought over to do Traffic, essentially by Chris Blackwell, and he finished up becoming the producer for the Stones as well. And Eddie Kramer was the engineer for everybody at Olympic. So it was all very, everybody knew each other. And I knew Brian, and I just was there when they were doing Beggar's Banquet, and at the session they were doing Street Fighting Man, and so I was asked to sit in and join the base. Interestingly, how the basic track was laid down, which was basically myself, Charlie, Keith, and Brian just sat in a little circle on the floor, and Charlie had a little snare drum in a briefcase. Seriously. And Keith had his acoustic guitar, recording it into a cassette tape recorder to get the compression to feed it back to the studio. And Brian and I were on these large Moroccan drums, which is the whole rhythm bass thing. And then some point later, I put that that horn on the very end play out, the Chennai, which I didn't know how to play, frankly. It was just, I said, do something with this. Okay. So that's how that was. That's the story on that one.
Yeah. I'll pluck one more out. All Things Must Pass, the George Harrison album. Was there a particular tune that you really enjoyed playing on that album?
I don't remember what track I played on that album or what I did, frankly. You'd have to look on the liner notes. There were a lot of people in those sessions.
Yeah.
I played some acoustic rhythm guitar.
Yeah. Have you kept most of your guitars?
All the guitars that I recorded alone together with were stolen out of the studio that I did it in at Sunset Sound.
Right.
My 2 matching D45 12-string and 6-string got smashed under a PA system at Glastonbury with some Traffic show that I did. And so after that, I stopped collecting. They're just tools. Yeah. So no, I should have. I mean, God knows I should have collected. God, with what they're worth these days.
So what's your current stage rig?
I have a custom Stratocaster. Custom in the sense that it has just a volume and a tone knob, and the bridge pickup is a Seymour Duncan. And I do that because I get a combination. Because I'll use I'll use the Les Paul sometimes in the studio for solo work, and I like the humbucking pickup, the tone on it. So I get a combination of a Strat and somewhat of a Gibson that way. And I love a Stratocaster. It's the ultimate shape guitar of all time. And it's a design that will still be cool 2,000 years from now. It'll still look modern. So that, and then I use a Bradshaw rig, which is a custom rig built.
Yeah. A couple of years ago, you did a tour with another great guitarist, Steve Cropper.
Oh yeah.
How did you get to know Steve, and how was that tour?
Well, I kind of got to. I knew Steve way back when I was pretty much when I was doing Alone Together in Los Angeles, through the people that I worked with, Delaney and Bonnie and stuff. So I kind of known. I hadn't really kept a close relationship, but kind of re-hooked up, and I thought it'd be kind of, I mean, I grew up with all that stuff. We're listening to Booker T and the MGs, for God's sake. I mean, I don't know how many tracks hit records that band was on. Yeah. It's enormous. Yeah. I mean, they are stacks. That's their sound. And so, to finally go out and do something with Steve Cropper, for me, I was like, yay, okay. And then I got to say Midnight Hour and some things, so it was very cool.
You're involved in many charities. One that caught my eye was Little Kids Rock. Can you tell me about that?
Well, this is what I'm really involved in, is that.
Rock Our Vets?
Yeah. That's what, I mean, Little Kids Rock was something, they asked me if I would be on the board many years ago. And of course I said, of course, I'm all about education, music education in the schools, and whatever I can do. But mostly what I support very heavily is the vets.
Yeah. And why are you so into that?
Well, I'm born in 1946. I got a father that was in the First World War.
Yeah.
I have a half brother that was driving tanks in the Second World War. So I'm very much aware of the price of freedom.
Yeah. You moved to America fairly early in your career. Why did you move so early?
Well, traffic was done, and I figured, it was just, since the music is what I mean, all contemporary music comes from America. This is where it started. So eventually, traffic wasn't happening for me anymore, for whatever reasons. We won't go into it here. You can read it in the book when it comes out. But I just figured that, you know what, I'm going to go where this all started. And that was the impetus for me to, at 22, just guitar in a bag, and I just came over to America.
Yeah. What are you most proud of?
Oh God. I don't know. Probably lasting this long.
Yeah.
Probably lasting this long.
Yeah.
But my bucket list, I need to get down there where you are.
You haven't been?
I've never been.
That's crazy.
I know. I need somebody to book me some shows down there. I want to go.
The country's currently closed, so I can't help you.
Well, that's okay. Everywhere is closed right now, but that'll pass.
So when Alone Together again comes out, will you be touring that album? When the pandemic,
like I said, I've been doing a lot of those songs anyway. World in Changes, Only You Know and I Know, Look You Look Me, Shouldn't Take More Than You Gave. They've been pretty much in my set for 50 years. So yeah, we'll be playing them.
Yeah. Well, Dave Mason, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.